So I went over what I had to say today so many times because there's so much of information that I want to share with you, but I'm thinking, okay, compress it to what you would want to hear the most and what you could use the most. And one of the first things I thought about is, in English, it's called International Women's Day, right? But in Denmark, you'll call it
Battle Day.
Thank you. International Women's Battle Day, yeah. And I actually think that's very appropriate because when we say International Women's Day, it's almost like saying Mother's Day. You know, we're here to appreciate you, but that's not what it's about. We're fighting for equal rights, and the equal rights that we still haven't gotten yet. We're not on the level yet at all, which is quite shocking in this day and age when everything is about identity and being who you are and being equal around the world, and we're still not there. And I love that idea of fighting for who you are. So that led me to do a little exercise, shall we say? We know that laws change, right? A law can change overnight. But the difficulty is mentality. So you can say, women are now allowed to work and get an education, and then the mentality is, who does she think she is? Going out there, women should not be getting intelligent, you know? So there's still that stagnant mentality. So what do we do? Do we wait until everybody else catches up with our mentality? Or do we move on without everyone else? I personally could not wait for my community, my world, to catch up with the way I was thinking. And in my sense, it wasn't even a catching up. It was, I could not accept it. So the little task that I'm going to ask you to do is I want you to imagine yourself being born in South Africa during the apartheid. For those of you who don't know what apartheid is, I'm sure you'll do, but we're also live. So I'm just going to explain that apartheid is the law that was set in South Africa that enforced racism. And so, for example, if there was a white man and a black woman that got into a relationship, then the penalty would be imprisonment or death. Not for the white man, but for the black woman. And so there was land agreements and et cetera, around apartheid. But basically it was segregation and it was the law. So you're born in South Africa during apartheid. And now I want you to also add in the factor that you're born as an Indian, a minority, in a community that has very old-fashioned ways, where men have their role and women have their role. And they are judge and jury for your family and their reputation. So families, if you want to have a good reputation, had to adhere to everything that the community social laws set for you. Now add in another factor. So you're born in South Africa during a racist period. You're born in a community that was old-fashioned and had gender roles. And then you're born into a family that's really strict, conservative, and had a few psychopaths in it. Not one, of several. Okay? And it sounds like I'm making a joke, but the truth is they were very cruel individuals. And this is how I grew up. I was battling to be a woman. I was battling to be an Indian woman. And I was battling the abuse of my family and their oppression. So to get, well, most people kind of get along with these ideas because they fit in, like a lot of the girls I grew up with. They maybe have questioned it, but they learned to, this is my role, this is what I do, I'm supposed to be seen and not heard so much. I am trained to serve others. And my husband will always come first. My parents come first, my brothers come first, and when I get married, my husband comes first. I am just the server. So girls usually took that role on, they accepted it, and therefore it was not too much of a problem for them because this is the way things were done. Unfortunately, I guess I was born different, but the wires were not placed in the same way. And I could not understand why different skin colors had different values. I could not understand how men actually got more power and freedom than women. Like, what was the reason for this? And I asked my mom, and that's the thing, I asked a lot growing up, so people knew something was wrong with me. Because why am I asking such dumb questions? And I remember asking my mom over and over again. Like, for example, my brother was standing at the end of our yard on the road with his friends talking. And I know that when I tried that once with my neighbors, my mom flipped out. So I asked my mom, why is he allowed to go there and talk with his friends? And she said, because he's a boy and you're a girl. And I'm like, that's supposed to be an answer? Like, where's the reasoning? But that's what we get. There's no reasoning. So before I go further, I need to explain something. I'm using the word brother and sister right now, but I generally refer to them as biological siblings. Because for me, brother and the word sister means love and respect and unity and trust and support. It's such a beautiful honor to be called brother and sister. And I think anybody who is not worthy of that title should not have it. And for me, my siblings are not worthy of that title. But for the sake of context today, I'm going to say brother and sister so that y'all are able to follow me, because I don't want you to just listen. I want you to be able to take this journey with me that I'm taking you through. So my mom gave me that explanation that he's a boy and you're a girl, and for many years I accepted every time she said that for every one of my questions. And eventually when I got a little older, I asked my mom, so you're telling me that he gets to have more power, more freedom, and a better life because he can stand up and pee? And my mother looked at me, like in disgust, because why am I speaking in this manner? Because also I'm not supposed to speak like that. And then I said, because if that's what a man has to do to get all of that available to him, to be entitled to all of this power, then the bar is set very low, because I know that I can stand up and pee too. I can't aim very well, but as we all know, there are lots of men that can't aim very well either. So what's the big deal? And I realize that bar for between men and women are set so low that we can just step over the damn thing. But why don't we? Why don't we do that? See, I said a whole lot of cards here that I haven't referred to in once. So forgive me if I go back and forth with this, right? So, but this happens all the time. We have a lot of power, because the reason why women in our community are monitored and oppressed so hard is because when a woman steps out of line, you destroy the entire family's reputation. And so that means we as women have a lot of power because we make or break that family's reputation. But we don't know we have that power because that power is managed by men. And then women who don't question anything because they've been brainwashed their whole life and over generations. And that's what has happened in a lot of communities and in a lot of institutes and organizations and religions. And I'm not saying anything against religions. I'm a religious person myself. So it's just, that's what happens to us. We don't understand the power we have and how much we can take it because we don't question it. Not that well. And so with this power, I started thinking that my brother does this, he behaves in this way, he gets all of this, and we hand over this power to somebody else to manage for us because they don't want to know how strong we really are. But then there's also the fear of actually going forth and facing all the rules that the community has set for us in order to do your own thing. And that wasn't okay. Now, in my understanding, organizations and community groups, all of these things, and it's going to sound a little bit like a conspiracy theories, but this is exactly what I believe. If they keep you looking at what is right and what is wrong and how we should behave and the good way to do things, they distract you from asking questions. And the most powerful question that you can ask that can bring down any organization is why. It's such a small word, and it is so powerful, and this word literally saved my life. And I'm not one of those women that use literally. It was like, oh, I literally blew my mind. So I mean literally, it saved my life. And so here's my story now that you've got the grounds of it. So I'm born in a racist family, thanks to apartheid. I'm born into a family that's old-fashioned and very strict. They will lose their marbles if you ever stepped out of line. And then I had to deal with things like my older sister telling me for my whole life that I wasn't with my mom that I was a stupid person. I'm so stupid that I can't go out and accomplish anything. I'm so stupid that I will allow someone to kidnap me. I'm so stupid that I should not be allowed to go anywhere. My younger sister made it in a way that I was never allowed to have friends throughout my entire schooling life. And in theory, yes, I was, but in reality, I never could, because she went to the same school that I did. And the minute I made a friend, that same day, my sister would come home and tell my mom that my new friends were whores, or into drugs, or troublemakers. So my mother would blow a gasket and then scold me and forbid me from seeing those people ever again. And I had to do it because if my sister ever saw me with them, she would report it to my mom. So it became a pattern. Every time I got a new friend, I would get reported. I would have to stay away from them. Friends were not allowed to come over because my mom monitored every one of our conversations. And my friend said, we're never coming back, which didn't last long, so then I had to change friends. I was never allowed to go to my friends' houses, go to the movies, go to sleepovers, go to the mall on my own because I could not be trusted. So I became this moron that everybody else had to monitor. My sister, who was younger than me, got authority over my life. She decided where I could go and couldn't go. She went out to prom and came back the next day with no problem. I went to my prom and I got yelled at for not coming home after a couple of hours. And yet my sister, she was doing like cocaine and stuff, and she was making out with boys at a young age and coming with hickeys all over her neck. And they always thought I was going to be the one to bring shame to the family for falling pregnant. And I thought kissing guys were gross until I was 21. So I swear, the first time I got kissed, I was 21, I was in university, and it was against my will. So that's not even my personality. So my mom really crunched down on her rules towards me and kept me prisoner in her house. I was only allowed to go to school and then come back home. I never had a social life. I never had friends. And then I went to university and started to get some friends there. And the first time I went to the movies, I was also 21. And I snuck out of my class in university just so I can go to the movies and not tell my mom. My brother, he's a pathological liar. And narcissistic. He had these elaborate stories that he would come up with, things that would make me shameful or present me as a shameful person, as a disgrace, things that had to be, dealt with immediately before anybody found out. But they were all lies. And he wouldn't just tell my parents, he would call up my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles. And so after a few weeks, when we started visiting people, suddenly people were yelling at me and saying that you're too out of hand and, treating me like I'm a whore, because that's how my brother depicted me. And none of it happened. And it went on like this for years. Nobody asked me if it was true. Everybody just came down on me really hard for not being a respectable girl. And even though I never did anything of the sort. And if you think that's bad, then the other thing I have to say to you is that my brother, I believe, genuinely hated me. For years, I can't remember for how many years, but maybe my earliest memory is 15, but I know he had been doing it way before that, for many years. He always told me that I shouldn't be alive. He basically came flat out and explained that I should kill myself. And he would come up with detailed plans as to how I should do it, not even as a joke, but seriously. He would say things like, the entire family thinks you're a burden, and you need to go kill yourself because then they can finally be happy. We cannot have you. We cannot stand you. You bring us misery. Nobody wants you. Nobody ever wanted you. Please go kill yourself. And he even, I remember very clearly, he said, I will make a noose. You go into the bathroom. I will hand it you through the window. This is how you're going to tie it, and this is how you're going to hang yourself. And then I will come in after a few minutes. And trust me, everybody's going to be so happy after that. So this went on like I wasn't even an adult. It was my whole childhood that went on in this manner. And of course, this made me suicidal. Of course, because I thought I was completely unwanted, unworthy, stupid. And I started to hurt myself as well on a regular basis because, unfortunately, I also have a terrible temper. So combining anger and feeling bad, you don't know how to express it. And anybody who has common sense knows that when you're angry, there needs to be an outlet. So my outlet was to hurt myself. And I did that whenever I was treated badly, which was often. So the mental abuse, and there are also some physical abuse, but that for me does not leave a greater impression as the mental abuse, because physical abuse, scars, experiences you can get over much faster, even though it takes a while, than mental abuse. Those scars linger through your adult life, through your marriage, as through parenthood. It stays. It's the button that becomes part of you. So for me, that's the greatest harm that my brother ever did and my family has ever done to me. So, I have to speak a little faster, I think, with the time. So where does this take me? So what did I do? So one day I was having an argument with my mom and my sister about what a slut I am. And in that argument, I found out that my ex-fiancé cheated on me, and they knew. And they didn't tell me. And then they said I was too stupid to not know. So I left the house to kill myself. I took my mom's knife with me. And then as I was walking around the streets, I asked that question. I had so many times, why do we do things like this and why do we do things like that? But the first time I asked myself, why should I kill myself for people who don't even care about me? Why should I die before I even had a taste of freedom to understand what freedom was? And that really made me think, why should I even bother to die? If I'm such a burden, then I should leave, then I'm out of their lives, but I don't need to end my life. And even if my choice was fall in line, become that girl that I'm supposed to, and end up in a marriage that's miserable like my sisters and my brothers and my parents, then just fall in line with all of this, then I would be lying on my deathbed with a massive regret, not about not accomplishing my dreams or failing at stuff, but the regret for never even trying to go after what I wanted. So that night when I left my mom's house, and this is a moment I will take with me for the rest of my life to my grave, I sat next to the motorway under the moon at night, and I just watched the cars go by. And that was the greatest hallelujah moment of my life. It was the first time I understood what freedom was. Watching stupid cars go by. And why? Because as a girl, a young Indian girl, I was not supposed to be out at night unaccompanied. And I was not supposed to be next to the road like a hooker. But I had no one to answer to. And then all that fear dropped away from me, and I just drank up this entire sensation of freedom. And I cannot explain to you what that is like, to be captured your whole life in a bubble of other people's beliefs and in a home, and then to suddenly have that bubble burst because you're breaking the rules and no one to answer to. That day, I made up my mind that I will die on the streets trying, then die miserable in my mother's home or my husband's home. So I was homeless, and I moved around, found jobs, went door-to-door sales, and found out I was actually pretty good at sales and speaking. So I ended up making a lot of money because of that, and my career took me forward. I came to Denmark, I met my husband, and built a successful life for myself here as well. And I realized that my sisters and brothers behaved that way because they were jealous, and they tried to break down everything I had, because their jealousy became bitterness, because how come she went forward to get everything we deserve? Why is it that she can accomplish what we couldn't? We never gave her permission to become that person. And how dare she go that way? It's not right. So they became very, very bitter. They spoke ill words against my husband because he's white, and told me never to learn Danish, etc., etc. It became a war. And that day I cut them off. Completely cut them off. And every decision I've made in my life, I have this one mantra. When I'm lying on my deathbed, what regrets am I going to have? Can I live with this or not? And that I said I can live with. Because every conversation was, even after I got married, it was still, how stupid am I? But by leaving my house, I found out I was not stupid. I found out I was really intelligent, actually, and it surprised me. And that I could do so much, and I was a survivor, and I could do these things. Now I'm going to refer to my cards. So let me leave those there. So if I could leave you with anything today, I want you to think about the fact that I was a victim of so much of different types of abuse and a prisoner to other people's labels. I was in a community that set the rules for how we should behave, and my family cared everything about doing what the community asked, and then set in a place where racism was really, really high. And this is important because my sisters once upon a time, when we had this a large fight, when we got married, told me that I deserved to marry a black man who would put me in my place. And in code, that basically meant I should have married someone of less value, who's stereotyping, really violent, so that he would beat me and rape me until I learned where I belong. And that's what my sisters wished upon me, to my face. And that, for me, was, of course, crazy, because I also did not understand the whole concept of racism. I still can't. So I want you to think about moving past of this, and how does that affect you? I would like that you understand that as women, we are so powerful, but history and our community and our social behavior has distracted us from tapping into that female power that we already had. I believe it was nature's selection to give us the ability to have kids because it's so hard. To raise kids because it's so hard, and we have the willpower to do it. But history and community have told us that we are not that strong, and we forget it ourselves. We know a little bit, but I think we have a lot more power that we can tap into. The other thing I want you to think about, and this is the most important, what dreams have you set aside because of your family or social rules that were put on you? Because of the labels that were put on you, because of anybody that you know that has created an influence for you to never believe in yourself completely. What is it that you wanted to achieve in your life and you didn't go after it? And then ask yourself why. Ask yourself questions upon questions about why what stopped you from going after what you want. Because I believe that every single person who's here and watching from home, there are some dreams that we didn't achieve because of fear and embarrassment. But I'm here to tell you that pain from the fear of failing and embarrassment is nothing compared to a lifetime of regret. So go after your dreams, fail and laugh, and then have a story to tell your grandkids and your kids and whoever that you tried it, you failed, but damn it, you were brave enough to do it. Thank you.